All right, all right, all right. Stop the presses. Stop the presses. This is one of the best books I have ever read in my life. Straight up. But before we get into it, happy Halloween. I'm doing it. I'm going in full costume, going all out attire. Cobra Kai represent. Yeah, I tried doing a spooky aesthetic with like candles and stuff. And, just trying to celebrate, get really into the Halloween spirit. And the timing could not be better because I happened to finish Sinister Forces, a Grimoire of American Political Witchcraft, Book 1, The Nine, by Peter Levenda. And let me just say, this is maybe one of the best books I've ever read, and one of the best history books. It's essentially a history book. But my God, it is a conspiracy theorist's dream. It just is so interesting, and everything is so well sourced and documented. You'll see, like, at the end of every chapter, there's just pages of references. So this guy's legit. Everything's so well researched. So I guess, what is this about? This book essentially is part one of three. And it is tracing America's lineage of witchcraft and using witchcraft. And the book is split essentially into three parts, where it's like talking about Native American, Old America magic, like Mormon, Joseph Smith story, and all this stuff. And then it goes into the more 60s, after World War II era, 40s. It goes into Nazi scientists and how they were used in Operation Paperclip to, do all sorts of mind control related things. Fun fact, MK Ultra is spelt with a K because that's the German way of spelling control. So it's like, even in the name, and it's about how these people co-opted magic, shamanism, rituals, and psychedelics to bring in the beginning of American political witchcraft, so to say. Not the beginning, but like go more intentionally into it, so to say. Make it a bigger part of how the government operates. And then the last part of the book talks about how those two dynamics interplay and are still going. And now this book touches everything. It starts with like Native American burial mounds in the East Coast, and how that connects to Charles Manson, who was born right next to one, and how they're all supposed to be cursed, or he lived right next to one. I can't remember the exact detail. And it follows that to, Manson's time in prison, where certain scientists or with one of the prisons he was staying at was one of the prisons where they were doing the MK Ultra experiments, and somehow Manson always, despite having a huge rap sheet, would always get out of prison somehow to do some shenanigans. It's almost like he was purposely being let out and documented. And it was said that guy had like a powerful presence and could do magic in a sense, like a real power, so to say. So God knows what kind of things they were doing to him. But it really just really hits all the bases, and it's just so interesting when it talks about Mormonism, for example. I know Mormonism through that South Park episode where they just rip on it, but it talks a little bit about how Joseph Smith operates. And as someone that's into magic and practicing magic, like, who am I to laugh at things? I go out in the woods and light candles and howl at trees and try to start fights with bushes and all that stuff. So who am I to laugh or mock that? In a sense, that South Park episode's hilarious though. But he was really into divination, and it talks about how that part of his life played a bigger role in how he operated and what his empire came to be. And then it talks this book also gets into, in the second part, the dynamic between Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons, and L. Ron Hubbard. This is a really interesting story, by the way, and this book goes way into it. But how essentially Jack Parsons, who's the father of American rocket engineering, rocket propulsion, and L. Ron Hubbard, who created Scientology. And the book essentially like talks about how they were both students of Crowley, and they both learned amazing things, and they both used those magical practices to transform their lives in the world. The thing is, one guy used it for furthering man's knowledge of science, actual science and rocket propulsion and everything that comes with it, and one guy used it to start a cult. It's almost like, you know, a yin and a yang. It's a crazy story, and how they were just weaved together. And yeah, so if you're into learning about magic and history and occultism and how they all weave together, and how this country's founding fathers and we're all into witchcraft essentially, and what's even crazier is it really talks about how the CIA operates as a modern mystic society. It is literally a secret society. No one thinks about that. They call it the Secret Service, but it is a secret society. We don't know what they're doing. That we all know they get into some weird stuff. Project Stargate, which is all about astral projection. They have all sorts of documents with strange paranormal phenomena, the MK Ultra stuff. The list goes on and on and on and on. And they, for using the astral projection, I think Project Stargate was what it was called. Going on that line, this book really like talks about how they were recruiting mystics and shamans and all this to do magic, but for not clear-cut purposes, that they were just messing around or doing, honestly, pretty nefarious things. This book really nails it with a quote on page 222. Right here. The vast array of worldwide literature on mysticism and mystical states is very clear and consistent on several important points, most of which were ignored by government-supported mind control efforts on both sides of the political divide. The first and most important point is that these states are approached gradually and with graded levels of training and preparation. Later it goes on. The focus of the mind control experts, however, was on the goodies themselves, the psychic abilities, the control over memory, control over autonomic bodily functions, and not on the development of their subject's spiritual identity. This is known in occult circles the world over, from India to Europe to America, as black magic. Yeah, some real stuff. So, it gets into it. Final thoughts? Yeah, I almost want to create a series for like highlight book reviews, because this book knocks it out of the park. I will definitely be reading part 2 and part 3 when the time comes. The pages are a little dense, and it is a thick read. It took a little time, but I really enjoyed every part of it. And this kind of hits every kind of subject I'm really interested in, and it was perfect for Halloween, so the timing couldn't be better. I highly recommend it, and with that being said, I hope this book review was useful. Have a happy Halloween, and have a great day no matter which day you end up watching this. Peace out.